because you get 80 gig, right? The storage would be expensive,
Yeah.
especially if you needed to have like 3 environments. So for example, the company I'm with now, our database is 450 gig, right? So, um,
But yeah,
and if
that
we,
will somehow reduce to approximately 60% of the current size, because
oh,
in
okay,
SaaS there is page level compression at SQL, and you can
I
also
see.
enable it on-prem. But yes, on SaaS there it's enabled by default. So we see drastic database size reduction when you go to SaaS, and then you cannot take your changelog entries. You technically cannot take your record links. So changelog entries normally is a huge set of data that you have. So it makes sense to kind of drop that and restart if needed from that perspective.
Yeah, if we move to that, I think we'd do a re-implementation rather than an upgrade.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of start over clean because there's a lot of customizations and some of them were kind of abandoned, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
anyways,
yeah. Okay, so for today's session, as we discussed last week, we'll be looking at how you integrate or add your custom entity between CRM and Business Central, and using the default CRM connector that we have. To begin with, I've done some pre-work already, so I'll just showcase that here first. I have added a table in Business Central, and that table have just 3 fields: number, name, and amount. And that table also have a list page and a cart page. Just as simple as that. Other than this, I have a similar kind of table available in my CRM environment, which is this. This also have the similar set of fields, and both the table can have more fields. I'm just trying to demo how we link these two entities, and there can be other fields which are maybe CRM specific or maybe Business Central specific, and the mapping will only take care of the data that is linked based on the mapping that we saw in the last week. Now, in this scenario, we would like to link these 3 fields with the BC3 fields so that we can utilize them in the integration. So the first thing that we saw last week also, that there are some virtual tables created within Business Central for these CRM tables. And that's kind of the first step to integrate these entities between CRM and Business Central. For that, I have seen some people building those virtual tables manually. And I guess that's where we kind of miss some of the Microsoft documentation, which is here. There's this documentation or a utility available inside your VS Code, which allows you to create the proxy tables for CRM entities that you have, or CDS entity. So this tool can be used if you are just connecting to the common data service, or you are connecting to a CRM environment, because both resides inside Dataverse. The executable for this will be found inside your username, VS Code extension, and the AL version. So let me just go there. We'll start from there. Okay. Here I am on my VS Code folder, and then inside VS Code, there is an extension folder. This folder contains all your VS Code extension that you're using. Microsoft extension, other third-party extension, as you can see, I'm using a lot of them. Then you need to figure out your AL extension from Microsoft, which is, let me see what version I'm using so that I can exactly go to that. So you'll go and search for your AL language, and the version for it is, where is that? Okay. So the extension is AL language extension for Business Central. So let's search for this in this list. And it is MS Dynamics SMB, if I remember it correctly. I don't know where you see that. Oh, here, I guess. Version 11.5.83426, and that's the version that you see here. Once you go inside that folder, the rest path is go to the bin folder, and there you get that exe called ALTP Gen exe. So it is part of your VS Code extension, not of your Business Central environment. And then to get the proxy table, you can either use PowerShell or you can use command line. And you just need to run the ALTP Gen exe with following parameters. What are these parameters? The project is a parameter which defines where is your AL project resides, where it needs to create those virtual tables. And then the package cache path tells it where you have the symbols, because the utility will try to compare the tables against the base Microsoft symbols. And if you're trying to fetch an entity which already exists in Microsoft, then it will create a table extension. And if you are trying to fetch a new entity, which is not available as a virtual entity in Business Central, it'll create a new table for it. Your service URI, which is the third parameter, is your CDX or your CRM environment detail, which is something like this. Then the next parameter is entities, where you define what tables you want. You can have one table, you can have 5 tables, that's up to you. The base ID is a parameter where you define what table ID you want to use, or table extension ID you would like to use when in Business Central, from the Business Central perspective. And then the table type can be CDS or CRM. If this parameter is skipped, it'll create for both CDS and CRM. So based on what integration you're doing, you can define which table type you need. And that's it. And here is an example of how to write this. So let's copy this and let me open my command prompt to make it easy. I'll run my command prompt as administrator. And once that pops in, I'll bring it here. Okay, so let me zoom this in and let me find how I do that. Okay, let's keep it here as it is. So the first thing that we want to do is navigate to that folder where our exe is. So let's go and do a. Okay. Now here, my command is ALTP gen, and then the project that I want it to be placed in is, let me see where that project is. Okay. Here is that project. So I'll copy that path and paste it in here. Once I've defined the project, then is my prod package cache path. This is where I define where my cache is, or my symbols are, which are always stored in my AL packages folder inside the same root directory. Then it's about my service URI. This will be used to fetch the entity that you need, and my CRM environment is this. Okay. Going ahead, the entities that I need will be listed here. And while you're picking your entities, don't go with this name. Go back to your tables list, find out your table, and then fetch the name, which you cannot see here. So the table name is, and let me write it down somewhere, is my CRFA6 underscore CRM BC demos. Okay. I can just plug that in. If you want multiple entities, then you can do a comma And let's pick one more, the standard one, so that you can see what happens. And that entity is called account directly. So I can put account. And then last or second last parameter is my base ID, where I want to start it with. And I already have a table at 60,000. So I'll say start with 60,001. And my table type is CRM. Once you have set all these parameters, once you hit enter, okay, I might have done something wrong. Let me go back. It is base ID. And this is how I do it, entities. Let me just keep one. Let me see how the documentation says we can do multiple. Yeah, it's a comma. Okay. CRM CDS demos account base ID is the right way that I'm writing it. Yes. And the table type is CRM. It says, okay, let me just pick the account table and see does it work or not. No, I'm doing something wrong somewhere. Let me copy this into Notepad and see what I'm doing wrong. Okay. I'll put it here on another screen, and I should be doing the other entity also somewhere. Yes, CRF demo. Okay. This will help me to generate those virtual tables once this is done. And my project path is okay. Let me try this here. Okay, so once I'm there, I should get a prompt to log in into my environment. And once you select your environment or your account that you need to authenticate with your password, I'll just find my password. Where is my CDX? Okay. Okay, that's my password. And as soon as this starts running, I'll see tables being generated here once it retrieves these entities. It'll add those tables, and in this case also table extension. Like you see, there is a table extension and a table added. So let's look at those. First, let's look at the table that we created. So it gave me a table of type CRM with the description as blank, and then all these fields. Now you notice that we just added 3 fields in that CRM entity, but there are so many system fields that gets created when you add a new table in your CDX or CRM environment. If you don't need any of these fields, you can just remove them. But these are my fields that I need, to be very fair. So if I don't need any of these fields, I can just remove them. And let's do that. I'll keep the ID. I'll drop the created by modified on. These all are system fields. And the owner ID, the owning user, owning team, state, status, version, import sequence, and I'll remove all of them. But before that, let's look how Microsoft does it on the account entity. Okay. So here is CRM. No, there's no CRM here. Where that went. Okay. CRM account. And they do have some of the fields. So let's keep them. Let's not delete them. Let's look at the account entity because it already existed in the symbols that the exe was referring to. So what it did, it created an account extension. which is extending the CRM account table. So all other fields which are not already added when Microsoft ran this command for their mapping, those all will be added here. These all are not custom field, which I have added or anyone else have added. These are also the base field, but because these fields were not available in the base Microsoft account entity, the system created the table extension, or the ALTP gen tool created the table extension for it. Now we see some of these error messages, and these are based on the table relation that are set on those fields. So if you look at least on the account entity, for sure, my entity did not have any relation. You'll see that it has a relation with different fields, and that's where you are getting all these error messages, and that's okay. If it is not related to your process at that point, this is okay. This is just for viewing that data. Any problem still here, or everything else looks good? And for simplicity, what I'll do is pick, I'll create a page for this table. What is that table? Okay. Let's create a new page using the wizard tool from ACL extension, and we'll call it as CRM. Okay. Let me add my prefix so that it doesn't overlap with anyone. And oh, I created a page extension. My bad. Page. Okay. And let me click this and add a prefix, add a table, and then I need a list page of all these entities, all these fields which I need. And I just want to display the fields that I have created, which is the number, the name, and the amount. If you want to see the CRM system ID, which is the keyword, you can add those or any other field that you need. It's just a simple list field based on that table. Now, we did briefly talk about how this page will bring data. There's one simple thing that we also have to do. So let's go back and refer the Microsoft entity, which is the CRM any page, account list page, let's say. So if you look at it, the application area, the caption, everything else is set. And then there's a users category for list, which we also have. And everything else looks okay. Then there are these actions. We might add them later. And we don't have anything on after get record. I guess this is important, which is on init page, because this kind of triggers that integration to bring that data in from CRM. So I'll just copy this trigger and paste it here on my page. This will bring the data from CRM and make it virtually available in Business Central for our demo purpose. So let me see if I have a PC open somewhere. Yes, I have this open. So let me plug this in here. Okay. This should be mapped to the right environment, I hope. Yes. So let's do a publish. And that should get published. And that at that point, from a virtual entity perspective, I'll be able to link to that particular table in my Business Central environment. And then what we'll try to do is we'll try to see how or what it takes to kind of add that table into my CRM connection window that we have. Okay. Come on. It's slower sometimes these days. Okay, so now if I look at that entity and try to search that page, okay, which one is this? maybe this one. Okay. It says that I don't have privilege or permissions to access this entity from a CRM perspective. And that's where we need to go ahead, because this is a custom entity, we need to go back and set that relation or permissions in my CDX environment. So let's go back to our CDX environment. Where is that? Not in this, maybe in this, yes. Once I'm here, I should be able to move to my admin center from here. Okay. Because this is a custom entity, which is not allowed with the in the plugin that we have for these connections between CRM and Business Central, we'll have to come here in environments, pick our environment, and then define the permissions for it. So I guess I'm on the right environment, but let's just wait for it. Or let me directly go to the settings. Eventually, you have to go to the settings of that particular environment. And these are, oh, sorry, tenant settings. So we are on this CRM environment, and let me go to the settings of this environment. In the settings of this environment, you will get users and permissions. And then here we'll choose the application users. Okay, we see the Business Central integration, Business Central to common data service. And in this, we can edit the security. Oh no, this is just that part. But if I come here on users and setting, I should also see the security roles. And in that, there should be a Business Central security role, Business Central Dataverse integration. Okay. And if I try to edit this, I'll see the list of entities which are assigned right now. So if you see the currency, the account, activity, contact, company, all these entity has been set. If we will have to add our entity. So let's see, can I do it from a search perspective or not? Okay, let me see all the tables. And then our table is called something CRM.
You can search it from the right, top right.
Here?
Yeah.
With the actual name or with the name of the table?
CRM, yeah. BC demos.
BC demos. Okay, thank you. So here is our table. Thank you for that. And then you need to define what kind of permission you want to set to this. Do you want to allow read? And then you set that up. You would like to create things based on this integration that we have built in, right? And I'll say not delete, but everything else assigned. That's it, I guess. I think, let me set this up also. Okay. So I'm allowing it to create record in Business on CRM based on this integration that we have published in our CRM from Business Central while building the integration last week. And I'm assigning these permission for this particular entity. I then can save this change. And once this is saved, we'll go back to Business Central and see what we are allowed to do at that moment. All right, this got saved. And let me search for okay. My license does not grant me permission. What is the object ID for that? 60,002. It should allow me to grant to have permission to this page. Am I on the basic one of my Business Central? Maybe let me check company information. Should not be, otherwise I should not have been able to set this up. Oh, essentials. Is that a premium feature? I don't know. But let me refresh this here. Okay.
Can you check your super user rights?
I should have. But yeah, I'll check.
Ideally, yes.
Okay. Let's check that also quickly before we move to next step. I'm the admin user and I have the super. Okay. That's settled. Okay. So there are no records at this point. What I'm going to do is, from a demo perspective, I'm going to create a record here, which should automatically get created in CRM. But this is not how we should be doing it. So let me give it a number, name, amount. As soon as I've done that, if I go back to my CRM behind the scene, I should be able to see that record which I just created in my Business Central environment. Yeah. But this is not how we want to integrate this. We want it to flow as the CRM. Rest of the integration is up, which is in this area. And we would like to put that entity into this mapping. And then make sure to select the direction, have capacity or her capability to define what field mappings are there and how the data will flow between those fields. And Sandisa, here I'm completely new. I have done it once for sure. I might need some help here and there.
I will try.
Okay.
I was not sure we are going to cover this today. I thought we are going to do what's new, and I didn't prepare for it.
Oh, sorry. I completely forgot. Yeah, me and Sandisha talked after last week meeting, or I guess at the end of the meeting where everybody was here, that we wanted to talk about what's new. But I'll make a note of it right now and we'll cover that next week. All right. So let's see, and let's try to understand what different entities or different events that I need to call for this whole CRM integration that we are trying to do today. So now we have a virtual table, which is this table, and we have an actual table, which is this table. And we would like to make this part of the configuration that we have so that we can let it run based on the schedule that we have. Okay, so we'll start with the code unit because that's where we'll do our event subscription. So let's say code unit, and we'll call it as CRM custom. All right. In this code unit, we will be utilizing two main code units from a Business Central perspective. One is our CRM integration management, if I remember it correctly. Let me see. CRM integration. Okay, code unit management. This code unit allows us to integrate the CDX or CRM integration entities, and that's how the mapping is created when you do a full sync or when the sync runs based on a schedule. This is a code unit that is majorly used in that. So the first thing first is we want to add that into that configuration. So there should be an event to manage configuration. This is reset integration table mapping default configuration, which will be called whenever a reset of that, whenever you call a full synchronization, and when we get that message that if you do anything at this point, it'll remove everything that you have customized in this, and will utilize that. This, as you can see, have the tag or scope as on-prem, but at the end, there should be an event available, and there's none. Okay. There are some in middle, but these are supporting the custom entities like the sales line, the sales header, the opportunity, the sales invoice. All the mappings that we see there are kind of start from here. But because it's a case statement, there should be an else case. And here's the else case, which is on before handle custom integration table mapping, which will allow us to handle our custom scenarios if needed. So let's utilize this, and we'll try to refer to this code while building that setup. So the first one is the event is this. There's no element name. Skip is false, and skip on missing permission is also false. And we are referring to the CRM integration management. Okay. Integration management. This event will allow me to add the tables that I would like to add into that setup whenever the reset happens. And if you look at it, how it is doing it is based on the table ID, and then it setups or calls a method to reset that table and with some of the parameters. Let's see what of these parameters are available to us here. We have the integration table mapping, and then we also have a Boolean of what we called is handled. Now, when we utilize the is handled pattern, this is where it happens. If it is not handled, then there is a confirmation, and then it sets it. Okay. If it is handled, then this piece of code will not be called. And then there is also an event or a function available in CDS or CRM based on whatever connection you have, and then it have its own custom table mapping defined somewhere. So let's try seeing what's there. Maybe I don't have permission to see that. Let me see. Okay, here it is, and that calls this function, which have on reset, on after reset configuration. So this then will call the on after reset, and then we'll have to define our entity here also. Because we cannot handle it, because if we handle it, let's understand it from here. If we set it to handle, that means it will not call the base Microsoft code here, which may be other entities which are not utilizing this event, or if somebody have already handled it. Because we all understand till this point, I guess, that there is no defined sequence how multiple subscriber will be called when the same event is called from multiple apps. So if, let's say, if there is a extension on the same environment by Sandeep, and that gets called first, and Sandeep search sets is handled true, then technically the best practice to utilize a event like this is to check if it is already handled. Then don't call your subscriber. The first thing that I have read till now in the best practice document is the first thing wherever you find is handle pattern is to check if it is handled, then exit, because somebody else have handled it. But in this scenario, if somebody have already handled it, I would still like to handle it based on my code. So my best guess at this point is all those people who are subscribing to this event does not set it to handle, and let other uh, subscriber to be invoked when this event is called. Does that make sense? Or is it a little bit confusing? Okay, in that case, let's move ahead and let's try to do it here. And let's say handle SDH CRM demo. I always try to keep the prefix also in the procedure name so that if somebody else have the same procedure name, it does not confuses the compiler when this is being called. So now let's see what Microsoft is doing, and we'll just do the same things as it is defined here. Let's pick an entity like this, and we'll call this here. We'll comment that so that we can see what's being done. So there seems a setup to reset the account mapping, and what that code is doing is what we are interested in. So if we look at it here, it is trying to insert the table mapping, and then it is setting up some filters. And then in the CRM account, which is the virtual table that we have, it sets up the same filter which are set here. And then it checks if the companies get, applies the filter on that. Because if you remember on the customer entity, there is a relationship that need to be set. And then it filters out that record, and then it sets up some dependency filter, which we don't have to. But all that is happening on the integration table mapping. And at the end, it also sets the field mapping for each of these fields which are available in this table. So let's try to follow the similar lines. On similar lines, we will also copy the two variables here, the table mapping and the field mapping. Put that in. And then they were referring to the customer entity and the CRM account entity, which is the virtual table and the actual table of BC. For now, I'll just copy them, and then I'll replace it with our actual table, which is SDH demo here. So this becomes my BC CRM demo. Okay, let's do that. And the other entity that we have is this, which is the CDS, this entity. I can also plug that in here. That becomes my CDS, let's say BC CRM demo, just to keep it simple. And we use it in our code. Now we have all those variables set. I kind of lost that somewhere. Okay, we'll go there. And then for each of these entity, we'll try to call that methods which are here. Once we have done that, it is setting up the based on integration table. It is setting up that field. So what we need to do here is, rather than creating a method, we can get the table mapping name, because based on that table mapping, we can move forward. So the integration table mapping name will give us the name of that integration entity in that setup that we have. So I can utilize that as, let's say, an if statement. If integration table mapping name, which we haven't set yet. So let's define that. Demo entity. And you can have spaces if needed. We'll be setting this up in a while on that setup. What is our entity name? And then if it is not that, because we are subscribing to an event which is only handling the custom entity. So this parameter shows me what is the name of the entity that the code have while it is trying to manage those custom entities. So I'm only going to run this when it is a demo entity. If it is not a demo entity, then somebody else is managing it. Then it is what it is trying to do is insert the integration table mapping, which is here. So let's try utilizing that. Okay. Oh, that seems a method. Let's see what the method look like. Here it is. It's a local method, so I'll have to kind of create a copy of it more or less to define that. But if you look at it, what it is doing, it is defining the direction, and then it is defining a integration table mapping dot create record based on the mapping name, the table number, the integration table number, the fields, modified field number, and so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, if you can just do this, that's all we need from that. So rather than creating this method, I would rather go ahead and I already have a variable for integration table mapping. Yes. So I'll just copy this and change it based on what we need. Okay. This method will create the record for me. Now, how will create the record? The first parameter here is the mapping name, which I get from this variable. Second parameter is the table number, and then the integration table number. Okay, so my table number is this. Is it the table number or the table name? Let's see. It's an integer. So my table number for this case is 60,000, the actual table number. And the integration table number, which is 60,002. Okay. Then the next field is, or you can just even pass the table names as if needed with the database and all. Once you have defined that in the create record, then we need to pass the integration table UID fields. The UID field is the field that's based on which the kind of primary key of your CRM entity. So the field on my CRM entity, which is this entity, I need to get the system ID and place it here. Dot field number, see the field, and there should be a field with the table name, the ID field that we have. So this is kind of the primary key of your CRM record. Once you have defined that, then the integration modified field number, which again comes from our CRM. So I'll just copy this as it is, and we should have a field called modified something. Let's search for that. Modified on what time it got modified. And then the template code, we are not using any template for this, so we can just keep it blank. And then the table configuration template code, which is from the Business Central side, we are not using again any template here, so we can skip that. And then there is sync only coupled record. We should set it to true, that we only want to sync. And then we need to define the direction. Now the context of direction is based on, where is the direction parameter? It's an option. And the option is to integration table or bidirectional. Oh, and there are multiple overloads for it. So let's review that first. So the first overload needs the mapping code, the table number, the integration, and are there more? Let me just collapse this. Oh yeah, there are more. So based on what parameters you have, you can define which of these overloads you want to call. All of these three need the mapping name, the table number, the integration table number, the primary key of your CRM, the modified field number on CRM side, the configuration and the integration table configuration, which is config template and CRM config template. And then there is a sync only coupled records, which is available on all these. And then there is a direction parameter and a prefix parameter. There are other overloads for it, which is sync code unit ID, uncoupled code unit ID, and coupling code unit ID, which can be set based on different requirements that you might have. And I hope these are the only 3 overload, but let me just check. The last time when I used it, I did not have this overload available. Create record, and let's check. Prefix, coupled, and uncoupled. Okay. So now the next parameter that we are looking at is the direction. Now direction, I know what the direction is, but I just want to make sure that I set it to the right value based on what is needed here. Direction arc. What is this direction? Direction argument. And direction argument can be to integration table or bidirectional in this particular case. If it is not that, then it will, if it is there in both of these, then look for company ID field in that. If it doesn't find that, if it finds it, then it does an uncoupling thing, which is again a thing that is available on the setup when you try to couple your records. And then it defines the coupling code unit, and then it creates a record automatically, which is again based on the coupling code unit ID. So let's set this the mapping to bidirectional. Okay. Direction. And then the last parameter is integration table prefix token. Integration prefix token is the last parameter that is available, which is here on the prefix. Let's see what kind of values it need. It is not utilizing that in here, but it is passing that to maybe this prefix, and then this is also prefix. Integration table caption prefix. Okay, it's just a prefix on the table caption. So let's give it as a SDH, and I guess there's an overload we can just do with this. So we don't have to define other than this. This will set up that table in that integration setup to have a relation between it. Now, once we have defined the table, the next thing is obvious is we also will have to define the field mapping between these. So, okay. How is that being done here? Let's have a look on that. Reset account, vendor, this CDS. Okay. Here it did the table mapping, which we have already done. And then here it is somewhere doing a field mapping, each field by field. Integration, table mapping, field mapping with the table mapping name, 0, the field number, the mapping field, and the field on the other side. So vendor, this is the actual table, and then this is the CRM table, and then which direction you want, so you can set that up. So let's pick one of these and just try to set this up for our 3 fields that we have. Okay, that seems that there's a method available inside this. Here, and here it is doing that. Okay. What it's doing again, the create record, this time integration table field number. So now we need to give the field number that we would like to set this integration on. So the first is our BC site table number, as you can see here. So we'll pass that as field number. The first one is for number. And then the next one is the integration field number, which is the CRM site field number. So we can do a field number here also. The number field. Oh, it's called CRM AD number. The sync direction, we'll keep it bi-directional. I don't know how you set this up. So let's see. It's an option. 1, 2, 3, 4th. So let's have a look on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, sync directional. It doesn't say the direction, but I think I should be able to utilize what we did here to be bi-directional. If you have to do certain fields from integration table or to integration table, you can define that. And then the constant value is blank, which is the fixed value. The validate field, as you can see here, is true. So you can also check that do you want to validate the field on the Business Central side, and this tells you do you want to validate the field on CRM side. So based on your business logic that is needed, you can set these values to true or false. For the demo, I'm just keeping it as Microsoft is keeping it for this vendor entity. Now the same thing, we just have to repeat for all the three fields. So let's just do that. In this case, this becomes the another field, which is name. And then here it'll also change to name. And last but not least is our amount field that we have. So we just set that up also. Okay, amount. And here also amount. That kind of puts our new integration into that setup where it defines the table mapping. It also defines the field mapping that's needed, and it does what's needed for it. So we are at top of our hour. I guess we should continue this if it makes sense. And if you guys are interested in the next session, if not, we can take a pause next week. As I promised Sandeep sir that we'll cover the what's new. So maybe next week we'll cover the what's new and then continue it from here. Does that make sense? Or are there any questions at this moment?
Yeah, sounds good. And I can also prepare. I was trying to do, two tables related, so that the table relationship can also be managed.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'll be interesting. Because when I did it last time, it's not that complex. I guess because we don't do it
It's lengthy.
Yeah, it's lengthy. But if you know which are these 5 events that I need to subscribe to make sure that this happens, that'll solve the purpose.
And there's a very wonderful document from Microsoft, that explains most of the things.
Yeah, so if you can later put on this chat or maybe send me an email, I'll add it into the recording for others' benefit. That'll be great.
Sure. And there's a Japanese MVP. He has written a blog on this.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we should surely look at it. Okay, Vijay, Vardhan, Jignesh, any issues, any questions, or anything else that we should be talking
Yes,
about?
yes. Hello, Saurabh.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so there is one issue I need your help. Uh, One of our client, on-premise BC uh,
Mm-hmm.
21, 21 version, uh, they would like to print up barcode on
Mm-hmm.
on-premise any report. They have already a font, but I tried, but it is not working. So The font name is C39, M2, N2, and W2.
Did
Is
you
there any
install
something we
that
can do?
font?
Yeah, yeah, it
Did
is
you
installed.
install that font in the server?
Yeah, it is installed. And also I try your blog that install for all user. Right click on that fonts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any something I missed something, or they need to purchase a font or something special font to that?
So there are some fonts, and because your customer is on-prem, I don't think that that should be an issue. Because in SaaS, there is not an issue now because Microsoft have purchased most of the commonly used fonts that are needed. But on-prem, you should be able to use any font that customer have, just if they have it installed on the service tier where which is being used when customer is using the session or users are using the session.
Okay.
I don't think it's needed on the web server instance. Mm,
When I open the report it and change the
just
font,
give
it
me a
is
minute.
showing.
Let
Okay.
let me pause the recording. We don't want to share your stuff on YouTube. But anything else, Fazan, Vijay bhai? Otherwise, we'll just end the recording and we'll see Jignesh issue. Okay. If nothing else, I'm just hitting the record stop and thank you for all who are watching it. We'll look at Jignesh issue and then I'll have to talk. I'll also have to talk to Sandeep sir for your thing that we were talking about a while ago. And then we'll see what we will cover next week based on, as in we'll surely cover what's new next week and then we'll see when we'll continue this. Okay. So I'll just stop the recording now. And here it is.